Hello and welcome to our Learn and Lead session today. We have a very exciting speaker, Mellini Monique. So let me just quickly walk you through how the evening is going to proceed. For most of you, it's pretty standard, but we have an amazing guest here today as well. Welcome, Kachika. So we are going to have about 30 minutes or so presentation from the speaker. In terms of logistics, after I'm done handing off to Padmini, she is going to introduce our wonderful speaker. And after the presentation, you have about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. While the session is going on, please keep yourself on mute. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat and enjoy. It's a closed group today, so if you have any specific questions, do try to save them, but I'm sure if you have a burning desire, Mellini won't mind. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Padmini.
Hey, thanks, Uvika. Welcome, Mellini. So let me introduce Mellini to you. Mellini Monique is a voice futurist and founder of the Vocal Intelligence Atelier. I hope I'm saying that right. Vox
Lovely.
Versa. Reminding the world that human voice is the original technology, the sound that creates connection, carries cultures, and grafts genius into the physical world. In this age of human machine interaction, she firmly believes that the human voice is the signal that teaches machines to serve us ethically and empathetically. Through her work, she amplifies intentional vocal expression as a catalyst for wellness, innovation, and conscious leadership, tuning the world to the frequency of trust. I love that intro. Thanks for sharing that, Melanie. And welcome, and over to you. Can't wait to kick off the session.
Well, hello, you beautiful souls. That's one of my favorite things to say because literally I see the humanity in you as the humanity in myself. And it is a pleasure to be here. I was with AWAAI in Arlington, Virginia at the Agentic um, conference for the Iowa breakfast. And just to see that room full of women, and a few men were there too. Noted that a few men were there. But to be in that room where the connection was happening, the support was being given, a hard quiz was given. And I thought, oh my goodness, it reaffirmed how non-technical I am, but how passionate I am about AI, responsible AI, ethical AI, and specifically for myself, voice AI. Just to give you a little additional background about myself, I came to AI about, I think this is 2025. So about 3.5 years ago. One summer afternoon, or should I say it was late spring, I live in Chicago. I was sitting on the edge of my bed and I was just reminiscing how, as a Black woman, my family had missed so many opportunities to participate in wealth building in this country, in innovation in this country. And I started thinking about in my little short lifetime, and I'm laughing because I just had a birthday. In my little short lifetime, I saw that we missed the internet boom. We missed the cable boom. Heck, we even missed the bottled water boom, you know? And so I come from a background in humanities, in the theater, performance, and then I moved from performance to being a drama therapist, working on inpatient psychiatric units. I left that work and became a full-time medical missionary, helping women specifically reclaim their bodies and their minds through simple, rational remedies. And it was actually through that work of helping women overcome their disorder and disease that I was led into the very work that I do today. And part of the work that I was doing back then was helping women find their voices in a world that was saying, we don't want to hear your voice. Your voice is not good enough. Your voice is not needed. Your voice does not belong here. Right? And so as I was sitting on my bed, I kind of saw where tech was headed. I saw where AI was going, and I thought to myself, I want in. But in how? In where? Remember, I'm from humanities. I was a medical missionary. I'm used to standing on stages, commanding rooms. But code, the thought of coding, the thought of being a technologist frightened me to pieces. Well, I ended up going to a conference called Voice. And it was at that conference, kind of before this conference, I had done some digging around and I thought, because I love language, because I love the human voice and machines, what if I enter into AI or into tech as a conversation designer? Is anyone here familiar with a conversation designer? What that role is? Good, good, good. So I thought, what if I become a conversation designer? I can help humans interact with machines. I can help create these conversation flows to make all of these things really good. That's okay, Jill. This is a chill place. If you need to go off camera, go off camera. If you have a dog, a daughter, anything in your natural environment, that is absolutely fine. It will not distract me at all because who knows? One of my children might enter the room. So I thought I was going to be a conversation designer, but by the end of that conference, I was clear that is not for me. It was also at that conference that I had a woman from the UK and another woman from India who, as a matter of two women from India, who were really interacting with me, hearing my thoughts. And they said, listen, AI is such a new field, and we hear your passion. We hear what it is that you really want to do. Since it's the wild, wild west of AI anyway, why don't you create your own lane if you have the grit and the passion to do it? So I left that conference and I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm already not technical. How can I, burn my own path in this field? But ladies, I am here to tell you that over the last 3.5 years, I have studied, I have taken courses, I have attended conferences, I have really put my mouth where my thoughts were, and I stand before you today as someone who has taken my love for voice and language and human expression and my love for machine interaction and all the possibilities that AI can present to us. And I have fused them together. And I really anchor heavy in ethical voice AI design as well as voice AI ethics. And so I want to ask you all today, and you can drop it in the chat, thinking about just all the different types of data we have out there, what do you think is our most rich and most vulnerable data that we can collect? What type of data is that? Drop it in the chat. Take a moment. I see you thinking biometric data. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, Padmini, personal data. Mm-hmm. Health data. Mm-hmm. Well, these are all so good. And let me tell you, at the convergence of biometric, personal, and health data, wait, let me see that. Yes, definitely voice. Thank you, Uvika. Voice is the richest stream of data that we can collect to feed into the AI algorithms. Voice is rich with your health data. Voice is rich with your biometric data. Voice is rich with cultural language, nuance. Heck, we're all ladies here. Who knew by raise of hand that I can tell if you're fertile just by your voice? Okay, okay. And that's sometimes just by, if you have a really tuned ear, humans can tell when other women by a lowered pitch resonance might be ovulating because our pitch resonance drops. So imagine these algorithms that are trained to detect and to hear and to systematically be able to calculate in a way that our human minds just cannot on a day to day, right? And so voice is this stream of data that in the world of AI really needs to be carefully considered, especially when dealing with responsibility and ethics. And so here I am talking to Asian women and other women, and our voices as as a woman of color, as a woman of color in this space, we have been on the margins, right? And now I'm so glad that you all are here and you're pulling women from the margins into the main lines of tech and AI because we are the builders. We have a voice, and the way we go about building using our literal voices as well as our internal metaphoric voices, it can empower and impact the very way machines learn to hear our voices. Okay, so for today, so I won't just get off on many tangents, I came up with 7 key points how diversity in data, voice, and sound design fights bias in AI. But before I get into those 7, let me tell you a couple quick stories. This January, I was at CES in Vegas, the world's largest consumer electronics show, where about 30,000 people from all over the world convene. And I happen to be the co host for the AI House, the inaugural AI House. So I was already buzzing with excitement. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA was doing the keynote for CES. And NVIDIA was all a buzz. Jensen Huang took the stage and he's talking, giving his keynote. uh, I'm sorry, before he began talking, there was this huge screen that it felt like it filled up the stadium in Vegas. And there's that, music, dun, da, da, building suspense. And then the screen, it had just different designs on it. But all of a sudden, the screen went black. And then lasers started pinging and zinging across the screen, and it was making a shape. And it continued to have the music in the background and the lasers going, and it was making a shape. And before the shape was finished, there was a voice. There was a voice talking about how we are emerging. We're on the cutting edge. So much innovation is happening. And as that voice continued to talk, the lasers completed making the shape, and it was a black man's face. But this voice that had been coming was not what I thought of as a black man's voice. And for about the next 2 minutes, my mind heard nothing that Jensen said because all I could think about was, what is the line between expansion and erasure of voices? Think about that. The line between expansion and erasure. Here we are, and we're like, oh, AI is making it possible for us to communicate more. AI is making it possible for us to take our voice and put it in 30 different languages at once to make people understand. Just kind of like what Sherry was saying, AI is making it possible for us to translate this video in our language. But when it has a voice, what happens? Are we hearing that video not only in our language, but true to our intonation, our inflection, our accents? Or are we hearing the words in a standard trained AI model, which is mainly trained on white male upper income voices? That has been the status quo. And by God, good design will help us begin to shift all of that. So let's get into the first key point. Oh, wait, let me just get this before we go on. Sherry says transcription robots. Robs one of the personalization for sure. But that's by design, right? It's by design, and we can design a different audible future. So, number one, we want to expand the sonic data set. AI without data is nothing. We all know that. But are we taking time to collect data from the richness of the cultural diversity from different voices all around the world? So, most AI voice models are trained on a narrow slice of that global sound. Often, like I just mentioned, the Western, male, mid range voice, including diverse accents and tonalities and linguistic rhythms, are lost, like Asian voices. And just think about it. In any Asian country, even within the country, there are so many accents, so many dialects. But when you get ready to talk to, let's say, Alexa, how many times are you not understood? How many times does it return faulty information because it wasn't trained on voices that sound like ours? Okay. And when this happens, um, no, when we can expand the data set, it can reduce systemic bias in speech recognition and synthesis. Listen, ladies, not only I'm talking, let's just I think are we all in the United States right now? Okay, we're all think about the cultural diversity just within the United States alone. And let's not even go with people who have migrated to America. There are people who are born and raised in America. There's a Western dialect in America. There's an East Coast accent. There's Southern regionalisms. There's Midwestern regionalisms. And even with all of that, our machines are limited because most data goes on the Midwestern accent. Did you all know that? That Midwestern newscaster accent that we've all been taught that this is the standard, but we know it's not and we feel erased. So we gotta, as we're working as people emerging in tech in different components, different aspects, we have to champion, ask for, rally behind collecting different voices as data sets. All right. Now, we need to challenge harmful stereotypes in sonic, let's say, aesthetics. One of the things that really got me excited about going down this lane is I was sick and tired of hearing a caricature of Black women's voices every time I heard it in the media. So you hear me talking, but in the media, oftentimes, no joke, this would be, I'm going to mimic for you what a Black woman's voice would sound like. It would be like, hey, girl, are you going to the club? That's what's up. And every time and I'm sure you've heard the caricatures of your own dialects and voices. And all I could think is, who is green lighting this? Who are the people in the room making these decisions that allow this content to get out to real audiences? And before, we just felt like We'll take anything we can get. We'll take any representation that we can have. But now we're able to build, we're able to construct. The bar of technology, no, let me say it this way, the bar has been lowered for us to build real data sets, real diversity in voices. And so we need to challenge, to truly challenge these stereotypes. So sound design choices, such as which voices are deemed, listen to this, professional, which voices are deemed friendly, which voices are deemed authoritative. If we are now opening ourselves up to a richer data set, we can bring in the intelligence and the context that helped shape these voices. Once again, here in America, it tends to be a more Midwestern, Eurocentric voice that's deemed as professional. So, what happens when my voice doesn't sound like that? Am I really less professional? Or do we need to start pressing the boundaries and challenging what does professional sound like? Another one is authoritative. What does authoritative sound like, especially for a woman, a female voice? Do we have to also sound very aggressive and kind of cold and short and staccato like we've been historically taught because that's how male voices have sounded? Or can authority also sound warm and inviting? We get to decide. We get to shape that through the data sets and the voices that we bring in and the context and the narrative that we apply to the voices that we're bringing in and how we ascribe and denote the data. All right. So it is important that we challenge these harmful stereotypes, creating a I that reflects the multicultural world that we actually live in. Let's go to number three. Number three, we have to, piggybacking on that, prevent the erasure of accent and identity. This one is so important to me. Oh, it is so important to me. As mentioned, I run a vocal intelligence atelier. I coach a lot of visionaries, executives, people growing and emerging into executive roles, people from all over the world. And do you know what the first request I get from mainly, no joke, mainly all the Asian women I work with? What do you think? You can come off mute. What do you think that first request usually is?
Accent.
Lose their accent.
Yes, that breaks my heart.
Mine too.
I understand why they think they need to erase or eradicate or limit the accent. But my immediate reaction is, I don't believe in accent reduction. And they're like, oh, okay. Kind of strong with that. I don't believe in accent reduction. I believe in accent clarity when we're speaking. And that's a whole different lane to talk about. But when we talk about building for AI, we have to really work to prevent accent erasure because accent is identity. Accent is culture. And we're calling for a multicultural world, not a flat, homogenous, and who gets to decide what that homogeneity looks and sounds like, right? And so we don't want to erase it. Okay, let me say it this way. When AI systems misinterpret or correct non Western accents, it reinforces linguistic hierarchy. And so the people who are cleaning the data, training the models, we have a chance, if you fall into those roles, to stand in and say, well, no. In this context, this accent is very correct. And we need to train the models, have enough ears to say, oh, yes, that is yes. That is saying hello. That is saying welcome. That is saying 99 cents. That is saying I love you. We need people to train the data, not we don't need systems training us. All right. Also, diverse voice data helps systems accurately understand, which is why there is such a need. And we can represent all voices rather than treating them as an anomaly. Wow, an Asian voice, what an anomaly. You mean to tell me this huge nation of people and we can't get data infused into our systems? No, sometimes when we have these conversations and we talk about responsibility and ethics, especially when it comes to data and voice, we speak about these things larger than what they actually are. We are the people. AI doesn't run us. We create AI. We have the power to create the world we want to see. Where the real issue comes in is where is value being placed? Where is value being seen? Because the truth is, it is expensive to collect good data. To ethically collect good data is expensive. And so, if I don't see these voices as valuable, or if I don't have a use case for these voices that's going to 10x the money that I paid for it, then we're not doing it. But I'm telling you, we need more people who see the value, speak up for the value of underrepresented voices so that design can represent and have proper context for a multicultural soundscape. Does that make sense? And remember, if you have any questions or thoughts, begin to drop them in the chat because we are almost there. All right. And so, as you can hear already, if we're going to have proper representation, that is one way we can build trust with these AI systems. Because, bottom line, when you hear a voice that sounds like yours, not a caricature of it, you begin to trust it more. You build rapport with it more. It seems more legitimate to you, right? That sonic representation helps marginalized communities feel heard literally, building trust in technologies that are shaping their very lives. And if you, maybe you're not aware, there are many companies, especially in healthcare, that's one demographic that is taking the time to build diverse data sets, especially when it comes to voice, because research has shown around COVID, especially when they wanted people to get their COVID shots and things like that, come get their checkups, when a white male voice would call, let's say in the Chicago area, Black households, the cooperation was very low. But when a woman, a Black woman's voice would call the households, cooperation would go up. As a matter of fact, it's a really interesting piece of research. When Black women voices are used, cooperation across the board tends to go up. And I haven't been able to figure out exactly all the nuance of that, but it is very, very interesting. So, once again, we need to have representation to build trust in these AI systems. So, are you stepping into territory about ability to hearing what is communicating? For accents impact reactions and create some barriers to knowledge.
And that
So,
is a true statement because there have been a gazillion surveys, and I will tell you this for fact. You can go on YouTube and you can look at people who are teaching AI, and you will get people from different parts of the world who will then have a survey what they understood. And 99% of the time, what your brain is able to put in there and remember is about the training of being able to bring in an accent which totally defies how you learn information. And the only time that's going to change is when the robots are going to flatten out everything. The people go, give me back those accents, because there's going to be a flatness to have people say, accents will be spice, which means you're human if you have an accent. Who knows, down the road, instead of having a barcode, maybe you'll say something, okay, accent, human. But I think you're wrong, because accents, which is wonderful in terms of personalization, as far as education, our brains are not there. If
Let
you
me tell you something, Sherry. I love this comment that you're making. And you have to remember how can I say this? What lens are you speaking from? Because in America, I can tell you what accents are research proven very hard to understand. But if you take that same accent and go into another region of the world, then all of a
absolutely,
sudden, so
absolutely,
we have to understand where our AI will be deployed, for what use case, and for what communities. Ultimately, if you're deploying AI, it's usually for a use case. And if your AI is anchored here in America, like I even tell my human clients, the Native American ear hears slower than most global languages. That is why it is difficult for us to hear and listen clearly to most, let's say, Asian accents, because the language is faster, the vowel sounds are hit differently. And so my brain, that was raised on American English only, when I begin to hear a different accent, it has to work too hard for me to keep up. Therefore, other accents that have been classically filled, or training the brains of American listeners, which are American English accents and even some British English accents. Very popular here. Those are the accents that they usually use in our ecosystems for teaching and training. But we are not the world. So I speak from a very global perspective, because you have people in Texas building AI applications for Africa. You have people in Iowa building applications for India, and vice versa. And so these are principles that we need to be aware of. But of course, we ought to ultimately and first and foremost need to be aware, if we're building an AI system, who are the people using it, and what ecosystem is this AI system going to be contextually utilized in, if that makes sense. Jill, I saw you had a question. Was it
Yeah, I have a question. I'll just
Mhm.
explain a little bit in more detail of the nature of it. And stop
Yeah.
me if I've mentioned this to you before, but once in my governance capacity, I was asked to advise on an accent mitigation software system that was developed by a man in India for use in call centers by agents primarily located in India. And the idea being, as they're engaging with customers, say in the US, they could elect to deploy this technology to help, I know, smooth out accents, make it more recognizable for
Yeah.
Americans. And I suppose my initial reaction to that when they asked, like, what's your position? I was like, it doesn't feel good. I don't know that I like this. But of course, call center agents, upon doing research, some of them really appreciated this ability. And so I'm curious more from how we engage that conversation and the salient ethical issues to draw. How might you have engaged, or what questions would you have asked? Because I don't think I did a great job navigating the key issues, because it was more of a personal thing. Yeah, I just am curious your thoughts about that.
This is a really good example because it is rich and it is real, and it comes down to a bottom line financial um, before even ethical considerations are made by most companies like this, they need calls to be answered, people to understand it. And if the people, let's say in China or India or Pakistan, are answering calls for American listeners and speakers, remember what I just told you. We have a hard time understanding them. And now we're on the phone forever. There's customer dissatisfaction. I'm saying, forget it. I don't want this service. I don't even want to hear that accent at all because I connect it with frustration, right? And so, in those scenarios, to have an AI that in real time can translate an accent and make it palatable for the ear of a transact of an English listener for a transaction, I can see the use case for that. But also as an ethicist in general, my brain says we need to be training the general public. Now that the world is getting smaller through AI, through social media, through the internet, we need to be training the general public on how to listen to other voices.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's really helpful. That was a really difficult one to navigate. So I appreciate that.
Yes. Padmini, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so something similar to what you ended it with. I think as we go on in this with AI, with globally everybody coming together, I think the training is more on the listening and the hearing rather than the speaking, because what happens is, and one part of being responsible or having a responsible AI deployment is for it to be culturally contextual. So
Yes.
if you have something that is built for use here, it should be palatable for people to use here. And like I see, like, for instance, my mom, she's been here for the last few years, but initially when she first came, she would struggle to understand the accent, right? It was flipped. She would struggle to
Exactly.
understand the accent.
I can't wait.
And
Just on that point, Pat Meany, thank you for saying that. Because oftentimes here in America, we are so American centric that we fail to realize that people fail to understand us and other ecosystems.
right, just yesterday, I came across what ChatGPT, OpenAI has developed. It's something called INDQA, INDQA, and it is basically sort of a system trained on Indian languages. There are a handful of Indian languages, and I was playing around with it. And what I noticed was, this is OpenAI. They have When you hear it, they have a white man speaking in all those Indian languages. So it doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound like that. But then I can't say I get it, because I think OpenAI has enough people that they can get who are, you know, native to that particular sound and accent, that they can use them. But I don't know why they chose this. So it sounds it doesn't sound like the language it is.
Yes.
So it's just and I get it. I saw that, for instance, Trump had a person, when this Indian reporter was asking him, he had an Indian with an Indian accent translating for another Indian with an Indian accent. So there was there was no translation happening. An Indian with an Indian accent was translating for another Indian with an Indian accent to Trump, and that didn't make sense to me because it was so. Anyway, so
Yeah.
because we are coming up on this, sort of globally coming together, I
Yes.
think our systems should be deployed for what they are built. And with that in
Exactly.
mind, I completely get the what Jill was saying. If the system was to serve people in the US, the accent then should be
Yeah.
something that people in the US can follow and not get frustrated. So I do understand that
Exactly.
mitigation perspective, Jill.
And Pat Meany, you said something that I was on another interview this morning, and I talked about how radical listening is something that I teach to my human clients. how communicating well and using your voice well is also about radical listening. And I believe you're right. In the age of globalization, multicultural context, it's going to be as important to learn how to listen with a global ear and multicultural ear as it is to speak with one. And I like what Sherry said as well. Like I believe that there's going to be a flattening too, and I hate that. But also that the richness of voice is going to become gold, right?
Yes.
And so, speaking about cultural context, I had a point. It said we must ensure cultural context is understood. So voice data that includes non-Western I can't talk this evening. These braces are getting the best of me. Non-Western linguistic cadences, the prosody, the flow of speech, the emotional expression, right? Culturally specific sound cues like that's a sound cue that I'm very familiar with, or oh, in America, it's like, are you okay? Is that sad? Oh, it's like, tell me more in certain places. And I like to use a very real example of context. I grew up in a house with six brothers, okay? Very south side of Chicago. And if we had an AI system in our house that was supposed to detect fire, if somebody screamed out fire, the ambulance, the fire department, the fire trucks will be at our house all the time because most AIs aren't trained to be contextually aware. So let me give you the example. Whenever my brothers thought something was very cool, you know what they say or said? Fire! They were screaming fire! And to most trained machines, automatically imagine an agentic system acting on my behalf. It would call 911 because somebody said fire, right? But no, they just meant it was really, really cool. So
Yeah, I was going to say in South Side of Chicago, they wouldn't have reacted because people there knew that when you'd say fire, that was a hip term back
exactly.
then.
But so that's why we need to train the machines to have so much contextual awareness, right?
I think the machines know that. I'm going to jump in. The machines,
They're learning that.
the machines have scraped the history of language. So if you threw that in there and said the circumstances, it would know. It would be in the context of a remark, not to call the fire thing. I know this because I did some work with this area of the context of something going back to the 70s.
Yes.
And I would say to people, like you people, you young ones, I'm like, oh, well, I know you don't understand this. And I'd be translating within my period of time where there's certain words that people look and like, oh, okay. But it's interesting. And I think, you've brought up stuff. We're not always going to agree. And you're going to always find
Exactly.
as you get older, you're going to understand the nuances because Carisha, can you pronounce your name for me again, Carisha?
Kashika.
Kashika. Her view of language input, and I'm really well traveled and I've lived
Yes.
a lot of places in the world, and I had to become a listener
Yes.
because I didn't have a choice. And if I wanted to be a part of the conversation, I was like glued to every phrase that absolutely was impossible to understand, but I had to try to understand it because I had no choice if I wanted to be cool and hip and fit in wherever I was. So, yes, listening is, it depends though. We're a visual society. Can you notice though, in the last 10 years, how we're all visual? So we're starting to hear with these as well.
Well, not starting to, that's a basic human thing. I tell people all the time, we hear people how we see them, like physically how we see them. Back to why that face, that laser drawn face of a black man and the voice that was with it was not congruent for me, right? And so it's happening all the time. And I know that machines are they are being scraped of all the data and the content that's out there. But I'm gonna tell you, even in my household, we run across so many AI, what we call FUPAs, or the children will come like, did you see that? They thought I meant this. And so it's becoming more prevalent, but we still have a ways to go, especially when it comes to voice. Now, a few more things I want to talk about just around ethical design. When we talk about voices, the, the tried and true principles, ethical principles, when we're designing, when we're collecting voice data or even interacting with an AI that requires us to use our voice, are we opting in? Are these machines designed to let us opt out even after we've opted in? Is it telling us in everyday speech what's happening with our voices? Because remember, our voices are one of the richest streams of data. Or are these AI systems taking our data, selling it elsewhere, monetizing it, harnessing the biometric data, and doing God knows what else with it? And so we have to call for transparency, for privacy, and I am a proponent for if you're going to monetize my data, that I should share in the revenue.
Absolutely.
And there are platforms that are developed already that enable that possibility to happen with AI interactions and platforms. And so I want to just encourage us to know that human voice is a beautiful happening that has been shaped through culture and time and geography and physiology. And now we're interacting with machines. Not only are we speaking to machines, we are the ones training the machines on how to properly hear us through
Mhm. Another,
context and through voice. And
yeah,
so,
I was
go
gonna,
ahead.
oh, go. Oh, I
No.
was just gonna add to how Shri also was talking about when you visit different places, each culture has their own idioms and metaphors that they use. So I think and there's so many that are specific to each culture. So giving that to the machine as well, I think that's a form of data we need to include as well.
Yes, I agree. And also, it, like feeding it to the machine and then giving the machine the proper context
Mhm.
with the saying, because that's where the nuance comes in. That's really, my mind just went through to all the things my grandmother used to say that makes no sense without context. Like when monkeys fly, like, what does that even mean? But I knew what it meant. It meant like there's no chance of that happening.
But you know, what's going to change, and one of the problems with us, not the machines, but us,
Hmm. Hmm.
is that because of our cultural differences, if you, in fact, somebody could get a PhD on this at this moment in time
Hmm.
about the prompting techniques based upon how we express ourselves. And
Yeah.
that alone, in terms of voice, people who talk more than thinking, by the way,
Hmm.
um, I've been accused of that from time to time.
Oh
Uh,
no.
look, the way people prompt has a lot to do how they speak.
And
Yes.
think.
And
And
so
think.
what's going to change within the next 5 years, very dramatically, we will have prompted so much for the machine to understand us. That is what's going to kind of flatten us out because we want results from the machine. So we're going to have to do more with the machine to get certain results, then the machine's going to want to do, like, to play with us to say, yeah, I get it, sister. No, I don't think so. I don't think the machine's going to be doing that.
I tend to agree with you. It's happening already. When I prompt something in the normal flow of how I think, how I speak, and get an outcome, I'm like, especially if it's around, let's say, creating a graphic, right? I'm like, and then I intuitively know already the things that I have to shift to say and to say it that way in order to get the machine to put that out. So to put out something of better quality. And so in my mind, I'm thinking about like the cart before the horse, the chicken and the egg, which comes first? Is it the way we train the machines or the way we speak to the machines? Which comes first?
So, quick question.
Yes.
As we progress in this field, we are going to see development that says that what you think the machine is going to act on it. You don't even have to say it anymore.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we'll be moving away from voice and we'll be moving to more thought. At how do you see that being culturally relevant, contextual, and all that when we move away from voice?
I think it's going to have the same impact as voice because different cultures think differently, even in the way you shape a sentence. It's different. So, for instance, a lot of languages, they put the subject before the verb. And then in other languages, they put the verb before the subject. And so, how are we training the machines to respond to that? And what kind of output is going to be harnessed from me and Padmini using the same device and trying to prompt the same outcome, but maybe she's subject verb and I'm verb subject. Or think about how many people ping pong in their thought process before they get a clear line of thinking. How will we train the machines to ride those waves and discern what we truly want? So just like with a person who stutters or have an indistinct utterance or an accent that isn't discerned well, I think that is going to be very similar to how AI begins to harness these chemical impulses and
Thoughts.
synapses that we call thoughts. It's going to be so interesting. And then what happens to context when it comes to discerning thoughts? It's juicy. It is juicy. But guess what? If we humans are building it, then I think we have the responsibility to infuse those same models with the contextual awareness, with everything that is needed to put out a responsible output. Yeah. A lot to chew on, a lot to think about, but these are the things, especially when it comes to voice for humans and AI, that wake me up in the morning and keep me up at night. And so thank you all for engaging with
Yuvika
me.
has a question,
Oh,
Melanie,
where
in
is
the
she?
chat.
Okay. Oh, let's get to it. So Uvika says, what are some issues you're seeing in modern day communication when you talk about radical listening? Oh my goodness, yes. Also, do you think machines can be taught about radical listening? I love this question. So, what I'm seeing is when it comes to radical listening, first of all, most people right now, due to uh, social media and how everything is quick, microwave society, 3 seconds or you lose their attention, da 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 da, ping pong. We don't have the ability to listen beyond sound bites, really in an anchored, open, expansive way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so most of the times, especially for since post COVID, unless people are talking in sound bites, it is very difficult for people to sit and listen. That's one
Mm-hmm.
layer.
Mm-hmm.
Another layer is for radical listening, most people don't have the emotional capacity
Mm-hmm.
to listen without feeling attacked
Mm-hmm.
or to listen without feeling like somebody is trying to cancel them or judge them. Remember, there used to be a thing, and Sherry, you might resonate with this. There used to be a thing called civil discourse.
Mm-hmm.
That's when people were able to sit and radically listen, irrespective of their point or opinion, like long form listening, right? And form a thought after the person is finished speaking.
Mhm.
A lot of that has been lost, but I do see a little pendulum of that swinging back because on YouTube, their long form content is starting to go through the roof. But with that, remember, you're listening and looking. But what about just listening to, remember, people just used to listen to the radio
Radio.
for hours on end,
Mhm.
listen to lectures. Remember when I went to school, it was a 3 hour lecture, maybe a 10-minute break. And so that's impacting radical listening. And the other part of the question was, do I think machines can be taught about radical listening? I think machines already have the ability for long form listening. Just look at chat. It can remember your conversation
Mhm.
all the way back 2 years ago. So
Mhm.
it remembers what we forget, but it can also remember the context of what you fed it. But there's so much outside of what we would feed a machine that will be necessary for radical listening. But who knows? In this age where we're developing ambient AI
Mhm.
in conjunction with sentiment analysis, in conjunction with agentic, in conjunction what we say, we might get close to something that does look like radical listening.
Mm.
Great
Thanks so
question.
much, Melanie. And I love the concept of radical listening. And I had taken a communication course back in grad school, like 16, 17 years back. So at that time, I had heard about the concept of radical listening, and it's so important, especially in business environments. So
Yes.
it was very interesting when you mentioned that, and I just got like really curious because some of the things that you highlighted are important, especially in modern day communication.
Yeah.
Things are moving very fast, right? It's all about before you could even think like what's going to come next, people have already moved on, right, to the next thing. So that was very helpful. And also uh, your point about that, yes, machines are kind of getting good at radical listening, but sometimes, and Padmini knows this in terms of like my view. For me, like AI is like a pattern recognition machine. It's amazing when you have the conversation with ChatGPT and it makes you seem that, oh wow, it remembers a lot of things and it's great. But I'm still on the fence for like whether they can be fully taught, as great and be an expert at radical listening. So
Yeah, I don't know about expert because we are so nuanced as humans, but
yeah.
the pattern recognition. So imagine the text or the voice, what we've said to it, and now sentiment analysis, which is a whole nother ball field.
Yeah.
Because if I do this, what emotion would you say I'm making? Right? It's so subjective.
Yep.
It's so subjective. In many places where I grew up, this means that is fire.
Exactly, right? Because you're absolutely right. Like it's subjective and it's
Yes,
based on your own interpretation, right? Like how you view it.
exactly.
So, yeah, no, that was great.
And once again it goes back to who is teaching the machine to interpret
Yeah,
and how is it being taught to interpret. So
yeah,
yeah, there you have it.
amazing. Thank you.
Oh my God. We
Absolutely.
can go on, right?
On
It's
and
it's
on.
8:06 p.m. here. We can go on for another hour, but
Yes,
we have to pull the brakes.
we do.
So, yeah.
Let me tell you
Any other
something.
questions? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
This is my last comment. We've talked about sort of like the human to machine interaction, building just kind of ethical, designed machines to hear us, to interact with us. But let me tell you what I would love to come back another time and do with the ladies of Iowa. I would love to come back and just talk about how we can anchor into our own human voices. Because if ever a time our literal speaking voices are needed, it is now as we act advocate in our working groups, as we take stages and talk about responsible AI, as we challenge the status quo, we need to learn how to anchor into, resonate, and deliver the value of our voices. And I would love, love, love to do a quick little
God.
skill building workshop around
Oh,
that.
that would be
Love
lovely.
that. We'd
Thank
love
you
that.
so
In
much,
the new
Melanie.
year, Melanie. Yeah.
Yes, well, okay. So with that, we'd like to wrap up the session today. Melanie, thank you so much. This has been extremely helpful, and we are super excited that you have already told us that you're going to come back next year. And we would also like to thank you, everybody. We know it's a short week, so thanks so much for coming on a weeknight. And with that, hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving. And we have some exciting events coming up to close the year, end of December. So stay tuned and watch the post that Padmini is going to make for our December events.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank
me.
you
Thank
all.
you.